afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this important conversation about how direct cash payments are improving the health of some of Bread's medical patients. My name is Daisy Gomez Palacios. I'm the Economic Security Fellow at Bread for the City, and I'll be moderating today. With us on the panel, we've got Brittany Pope, the Economic Security Supervisor. We've got Dr. Marla Dean, Senior Director of the Health Equity Fund at the Greater Washington Community Foundation. And we've got Mr. Vernon Suggs, who's a community leader, Bread for the City client, and a CashRX participant. We'll be discussing CashRX, a guaranteed income pilot program that provides monthly, no strings attached payments to clients living with chronic health conditions to find out how that's impacting their social determinants of health. I want to encourage everyone to ask questions in the chat throughout the event, and we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A at the end. So Bread for the City's mission is to help DC residents living with low income develop the power to determine the future of their own communities. This mission is rooted in a deep commitment to the autonomy of the community that we're serving. Part of that mission requires that every resident has access to the basic material resources they need for survival and growth and the prosperity of their social, emotional, and spiritual lives, which is where Bread sees direct cash giving coming in. Cash empowers recipients to allocate funds where they're most needed, whether that be food, rent, medical expenses, other essentials. Cash and CashRX can empower folks to prioritize their needs and goals, fostering a sense of agency and self-worth. We're hoping that CashRX can serve as a demonstration project to address the harmful narratives and stereotypes around who guaranteed income participants are. We want to bring light to the systemic and institutional racism that has given life to these narratives and the historical effects of these deeply rooted narratives that have marginalized Black and Brown communities and influence the response to guaranteed income projects and policy today. So, Brittany, could you talk a little bit about what motivated Bread to launch CashRX in this way with a lottery, monthly payments, no strings attached, and how Bread decided that chronic health condition should be the focus of the pilot?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this question, Daisy. I'm happy to paint a picture of how we arrived at this moment. CashRX truly embodies the system change and upstream policy work that Bread has reflected on and committed to in recent years. Bread for the City has had a fairly long history with direct cash transfers, starting with our Small Favors program, which has provided community members with a small cash payment in order to address acute needs. With this program, we saw swift, positive impacts on community members' lives and understood that direct cash was a tool to remedy these needs. In my work on the SOAR program here at Bread, I assisted many of our medical patients in their applications for Social Security benefits. And I saw how those living with chronic health conditions and low incomes were able to reach a basic level of stability with these benefits. With stable and consistent income, they were able to focus more on their health and less on life stressors. I'd say that the pandemic actually opened the door more broadly to the idea of cash as a tool to economic stability. Guaranteed income programs were spreading across the country. It seemed like every week there was a new direct cash giving program. And we also have the stimulus checks. And there was so much positive data and outcome that was shared from this time. And on the heels of that unprecedented time that we all remember, Bread co-launched the Thrive East of the River partnership. And that program dispersed over $3 million and other needed supports to community members in wards 7 and 8. With that successful experience and the exciting outcomes from the similar guaranteed income programs across the country. Brad fully committed to this work, directly leading to the design and launch of CashRX. So as we saw from Small Favors and SOAR, cash transfers positively affect both the mental and physical health outcomes, and social determinants of health, like things like food and housing security. Launching CashRX with a small cohort of our medical patients living with chronic health conditions, it really made sense to us. We really hope to highlight the connection between unconditional equity-based payments, which actually were participant chosen based on their own personal health goals, and its effect on overall health. With the small number of participants that were chosen for the program, we hope to put a human face to this work and show that the participants are the experts of their own lives, and also to demonstrate that the positive health outcomes aren't just abstract facts and figures, but real life. Numerous studies have shown that direct cash giving not only positively impacts individual lives, but also their families and communities as well.
Thank you. And Dr. Marla, how did supporting CashRX fit into the foundation's larger health equity fund strategy?
Well, thank you first for having me. So the Health Equity Fund, many people say, well, how is economic mobility, economic issues, um, how are they impacted by or connected to, that's the word I'm looking for, connected to issues of health? And the fact of the matter is, we know that only 20% of your health outcomes are actually medical care and access. 80% are social and structural determinants of health. And what we also know is what largely happens on that 80% side of the scale is connected to your economic well-being. And so there's a direct connection between health and wealth. And as we were thinking about standing up the Health Equity Fund, we said, well, we have a significant amount of dollars, but not enough to address all the issues from the medical side. What if we had a strategy that really looked at economic mobility, wealth building, community wealth building, and really thinking about how we can support nonprofits and programs and initiatives that are trying to actually actualize that theory. And so this particular project, or as Brittany called it, a demonstration project, really leans into that kind of theory of change for us, of connecting economics and health and seeing the tremendous benefits when we do so.
Thank you. And then you touched on this a little bit, but could you say anything else about, from a funder's perspective, what about CashRX made it compelling enough to give that initial investment?
Yeah, I mean, I think CashRX is the perfect intersection of what I just spoke about. I mean, it helps with just health and nutrition. People have more access to dollars. We know that it's not the issue in America is that wages have not grown, and they definitely have not grown at a level to support what we need to sustain ourselves. And so we have all kinds of people who are the working poor, and then the social safety net is just absolutely not robust in a way that can support those who may be experiencing a health need at a particular time. So when you think about that the minimum wage hasn't raised since 2009 and all these issues, we know, and it's clear from the research, even though some try and push back on it, that it impacts health and nutrition because you have better access to pay for medical services, prescriptions, improved diet. You have reduced anxiety and stress. We know a lot about toxic stress and anxiety and what it does to the body. We also know that this issue of choice, agency, and well-being is also essential. We want to double down on people's dignity and humanity and know that they know what's best for their lives when given real opportunity. And so we want to invest in CashRX because it also leans into this concept of choice, agency, and well-being. And so those are the reasons that we were very excited about this particular work because it supports both of those goals.
Perfect. Thank you. And actually, so Brittany, could you say a little bit about what Bread has learned in the first? So CashRX payments began in winter 2023. So we're coming up on 2 years of those direct cash payments. Could you say a little about what Bread has learned about the connection between income stability and medical outcomes from CashRX?
Absolutely. The findings already have been incredible. And first, I want to um, just express our gratitude to the Health Equity Fund to give us the opportunity to launch this program. And as you expressed, Dr. Dean, just the having your trust in us was incredible, and it really helped us as we had the seed of a thought of CashRX before. So to have the funds to actually launch it has been an incredible experience. So as I mentioned before, what we've learned so far in almost 2 years is we're just so pleased that our theory, the assumption that income stability would lead to positive health outcomes, has so far proven to be true. So Dr. Dean already just touched on a little bit of this, but our participants experienced improved physical health results. So 2 of the diabetic participants who reported actively trying to improve their A1C numbers saw drastic improvements. They were able to buy the food that supported their health goals, and they are both no longer diabetic today. It's incredible. Um, Participants also reported improved food security across the board, which is directly correlated to the stability that the direct cash brings. As far as mental health outcomes, those were also significantly improved. Participants described feeling less stress over their financial stability, less isolation from those around them, and less feeling of hopelessness and depression. We also found that participants were more aspirational. The regular extra cash provided the stability to allow them to think more beyond the near future and to dream. One of the conversations that we have during the intake when participants are onboarding in the program is to really think about how these funds might change their lives, might allow them to think and achieve goals that they initially didn't think would be possible. And we heard some amazing stories and dreams and goals, and it was incredible to allow the participants to have that space. And we've also just heard many anecdotes about how the CashRX funds have improved participants' lives in unquantifiable ways. So one participant was able to buy her daughter the style of glasses frames that she wanted, which speaks to how these funds address the dignity and autonomy and agency that participants, they often don't feel that when they're interacting with others social safety net programs. So we were really excited to be able to allow that choice in this program. Again, people are the experts of their own lives, and they know what they need. CashRX allowed that space to breathe and to put cash towards those needs, which had a positive impact on their overall health.
Thank you. And in my role on the economic security team, I get to speak with the CashRX participants quarterly to do a check-in, see how they're doing, see how the cash is impacting them. And I think there's two things that surprised me. First was what Brittany was saying, how the two diabetic patients who are in our first cohort had expressed the goal of wanting to control their diabetes. And we saw that in just a year, they were able to lower their A1C to be no longer diabetic, which is amazing. And they attribute this directly to the direct cash payments. As Brittany said already, but they know the diets that work best for them. They just were unable to afford it before the cash payments. They knew that there were the prescriptions that they needed, but they had to allocate funds for other things like rent. So they were previously unaffordable, and as part of the CashRX cohort, they were able to purchase these things that were needed for their health. The other thing that surprised me was the extent to which participants choose to use the funds to support their communities and families. The CashRX payments are obviously helpful, but they're not getting like $5,000 a month. So while it is a big help, it's not like they have access to everything they ever wanted. And even with that, we see that folks are giving money to family members who suddenly are facing the need. They're using the money to visit family members out of DC that they couldn't afford to do so before. They're using the money to take their families, their grandchildren, and children to dinner. And that gives them, it speaks more to that sense of autonomy and the choices that they now can make with the cash. So it's very special to see how participants choose to use the CashRX payments for themselves, but also prioritizing taking care of their family now that they have this like little bit more cash. But that being said, we have Mr. Vernon Suggs here. Thank you so much, Mr. Suggs, for being here. We're hoping you can share a little bit of what life was like before CashRX, if that's all right. Oh, I think you're muted, Mr. Suggs.
Here. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, okay. Well, I mean, before CashRX, I was, I would come to Bread and they supported me almost in every area of my life. Uh, Bread for the City was like my lifeline. And when I got sick, when I needed clothes, I needed food. Um, Even when I had legal problems, I could come to Bread. Um, and get some type of assistance on getting on, and getting on the right track. And the main thing was my health. I had a lot of health problems because of my past lifestyle, not being able to, uh, look forward to having just basic things sometimes. Um, and basically, I lived on the street for a while. Um, but I could always go to Bread when I was hungry or I needed assistance with getting a driver's license or something like that, getting, being pointed in the right direction. And up until I got sick, I had surgery on my spine, not once, but twice. But Bread was there, Dr. Malcolm, they were there. They uh, basically they walked me through the whole process. And because the doctors at the hospital, they basically had put me in an acute nursing home. They didn't think I was going to walk again. And in the meantime, I didn't have a lot of services. I couldn't go and apply for a lot of services and social services, and I couldn't get food, my rent. Um, my medication, all the things that you all mentioned. I mean, you all hit it right on the head. But over time, being in the RX program, I've been able to work on my self-esteem. Um, and a lot of people would say, "You, Mr. Suggs, you had low self-esteem." Yes, I did. I had low self-esteem. I had uh, anxiety. I still have some anxiety problems because I get anxious and I want to do things, and I've been things have gotten so better for me, because I can drive, I can go anywhere I want to. I don't have to worry about my car. Uh, if he breaks down, the money I get from bread, I could fix my car to be where I have to be. Um, I can make appointments when I try to put things together for young people. The podcast I'm working on, I've been able to talk to a lot of people, but the main thing is be there on time because I have transportation, something I would never have been able to do. I probably would still be on the buses and the subway. And I always had problems because I could never be on time and keep my word. And to me, your word is everything. Your yay, if you say yes, you should be able to honor that and uphold that, even to um, my kids and my grandkids. I would never have been able to support them when they would call me, like for example, my granddaughter, she plays basketball and she's very good at it. And one of the things that got her there is because every game she looked up, she played in, her grandfather was dead. I love to go to her games and watch her play, and they are very good. And, her whole team gets better. And I try to do things to help them out, and encourage them as young ladies. Because most of them come out of the rough parts of DC, like Southwest and over Good Hope Road, places like that, uh, where the social economic situation is epitomized. And I use my CashRX to go to events like that, to uh, to help my granddaughter and my grandkids. My son, who he graduated from college, but his mother moved him to Georgia. So I had to pay child support for him because I got sick and I was in the hospital. They don't stop the child support. You still obligated to pay that. And that CashRX afforded me the opportunity because I was really worried over that. I was at some point depressed because I put myself in my son's place. And I could imagine where he's saying, "Well, where's my father? Why, I can't hear from him on a regular basis. My mom say he don't support me," and things like that, which were true for a while. But I mean, I was blessed to be one of the lottery winners for this program. And right away, I went to work on restoring my relationship with my son, who just graduated from college in Georgia with honors. And I sent what I could to help him. I got on the plane also, and I went to his graduation. And um, it's just a blessing that I was able to do things like that, which I would never have been able to do if it wasn't for the extra funding that I get from this program. And also I was able to get my mental state to a point where I'm able to work part-time job also. Something I could never do because I didn't have the clothes, I didn't have the wherewith to get there on time. And it's not that I didn't want to work, but there were so many insurmountable odds against me at some point. I thought I could never get out of that hole. I thought I was going to be in a wheelchair because of my spine, because of the surgery I had on my spine. But because I was able to have those additional resources, I was able to go to my therapy and get there on time and begin to see results. It encouraged me to just keep on and keep on and keep on. And now I even get to play tennis every now and then with tennis rackets that I own, that are my own tennis rackets that I could buy myself. Something I never would have been able to do. Um, and I can buy a good book and read a book, something that was out of reach for me. My grandkids and my kids, they're grown, but my grandkids, I'm able to help them. That's where I get the most gratitude from. Because if it was up to me, I would give every penny to them because they deserve it. And I think about my grandkids and how my son and my daughter, how they have raised them, uh, in spite of, you know, in spite of me, and they raised them to look up to me, and I'm able to live up to that, man. I couldn't do that in the past. You just don't know how much that meant to me, and being able to uh just afford, like I think it was Daisy that mentioned, being able to go and take them and say, come on, we're all going out to eat. We're gonna have we're gonna go have uh crabs. We're gonna go out, we're gonna get crabs, or we're gonna go to the diner, and you all can get whatever you want. Uh and that's something that I've got accustomed to doing with them. And if you could just see the smiles and the changes and the impact that has on them. Because my son, they don't have to go in their pocket every time and spend money that they could have to use on their bills. Because they'll, just to keep everybody happy, they'll take their bill money and they'll pay. And we'll all go out. They used to do that. But they don't have to do that. I can say, hey, y'all, I got it this time. I got it. This is my treat. Uh, I mean, it's amazing that so much that I couldn't do. You'd be surprised what you can do with money when you have money, guaranteed income, for whatever time it is. It's helping me to uh dream about and look at the future. Because what I do now every day, I say, wow, um, I'm gonna be a part of that. Those in society that budget their money, that I couldn't pay for medicine, that I have a lot of medicine my Medicare and Medicaid won't cover. But it's no problem because I can go in my pocket and I can take that little card and I can flash that card. Something I would never have been able to do, you know, uh, and just to think responsible. Hey, I got to do the right thing with this money. I can't blow this money. This money's a gift. It's a blessing. So I better, and it makes me a better person and a better steward of my finances as a whole. Uh, and then I feel real good about that. I mean, it's amazing the impact it has on your overall self-esteem. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not rich or anything, but sometimes I feel like it. If you all know that feeling. And when my shoes run out, I don't have to wear shoes to the point where they give me fungus in my feet. No matter how much you wash them, the fungus is real bad fungus out of your shoe. That's when it's time to get rid of them. But in the past, I couldn't get rid of them because I didn't have money to buy new ones. So I would wear them and wear them, and my feet had got to a point where I had to go to a doctor. But now I don't have to worry about that anymore, and I can buy a nice coat. I don't believe really in buying designer stuff or buying stuff that promotes somebody else's name. But I can buy a nice coat. I can buy uh, some nice shoes, comfortable shoes, nice hats, stuff like that. So I would never have been able to do that. It's almost like I'm in a dream. So, but I'll shut up now.
No, I love hearing you speak, Mr. Suggs. Thank you so much. You mentioned the future, like how you have space to think about the future, and this actually was a really good segue because we do want to talk a little bit about what's next for CashRX. So Brittany, I'm gonna switch over to you. Based on what Brett's seen so far, what are you and Brett hoping that CashRX inspires in DC and beyond, and how would you respond to critics who say giving direct cash is risky or unsustainable?
Those are such important questions. And first, I want to thank Mr. Suggs for sharing his testimony. It's always so powerful listen to you speak. And yeah, my heart is always full when I hear your story. And storytelling is such a key part of CashRX. So thank you again for being here and sharing your story with us today. But back to the question, two very important questions. So we hope that the wealth of positive data and outcomes that they speak for themselves, that direct cash giving brings income stability and positive health outcomes. We went into this demonstration project knowing that there was going to be an end to the pilot, but we've already experienced the power and what the money was able to do in the participants' lives, what we just heard from Mr. Suggs. On a broader scale, we're fighting for economic security policy, both locally and federally. And internally at Bread, we're working on ways that we can continue to support community members in their relationships with money by launching the first cohort of our financial healing course. Our ultimate hope is that every medical patient at Bread can become a CashRX participant. We believe that this innovative model of a prescription for cash paired with primary care and other holistic supports has major implications for the way healthcare is delivered in this city and beyond. In our experience, it works extremely well and can be replicated across healthcare systems. It may even bring down total costs for healthcare companies because patients will have the funds and autonomy to prioritize their health. My initial response to critics is to explore why exactly you think direct cash giving is risky or unsustainable? Um, or maybe you understand the connection between direct cash giving and positive health outcomes, but feel uneasy with the unconditional aspects of the work. I think it's important to dig into the origins of this thought and to challenge the harmful narratives that are so pervasive around this topic. I would also point to the overwhelming data that direct cash giving works, even when we allow participants to choose their cash amounts. That was the unique, super innovative aspect of CashRX that we hadn't seen before in other direct cash giving or guaranteed income programs. Many of the programs would have a prescribed cash amount for each participant. Like in Thrive, it was $5,500 for each participant. In CashRX, we allowed the participants to look at their health goals, their social determinants of health, and come up with their own cash amount. So even then, when the participants were able to choose, they still were able to use the funds in ways that positively impacted their lives and their health. I would recommend talking to people whose lives have been directly impacted by programs like CashRX, like we just heard from Mr. Suggs, because understanding lived experience often changes perspective.
Thank you. And then on a similar note, Dr. Marla Dean, hearing what Brittany's saying about those narratives, what shifts in mindsets, in your opinion, are needed for other funders to embrace guaranteed income as a response to the economic uncertainty, AI-driven job loss, all of those things that are very present right now, especially in DC and surrounding areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically many people feel that living in poverty is a moral failure, and that's the narrative that we're combating. We don't accept that we have a system that picks winners and chooses losers. We don't accept that we have a tax structure that gives dollars to the most wealthiest and actually takes from the hardest working Americans in the world. I mean, in the country. If you live a life, if you shadow a person and see what their day consists of, I think when Mr. Seuss was talking about, taking a bus and trying to get from here to there and the inconvenience and not having the ability to move quickly, responsibly to the needs of himself and his family, you start to see how time is just eaten up in a day, how resources are eaten up in a day. That they call it the poverty tax in essence. That's kind of how the research talks about it. So we have to recognize that this is systemic and not individual. And so we need a systemic response, and we need to remove the stigma from individuals and move the stigma to those of us who continue to allow a system to create these deep levels of inequity. And so I think that's what is the narrative and the mindset that has to be shifted. And for people to understand, we heard some things that people who are kind of ready to pounce on these ideals could not pounce on. So let me give you an example. Mr. Suggs talked about, you know what? Because of this, he felt like, okay, I can actually go to work. I can do a part-time job. And now my esteem is in a place where I can do certain things. People will say, oh, you give people money, they don't want to. No, that's not what ends up happening. That's not what the data is telling us. Um, the fact of the matter is, when you treat people with dignity, it is amazing what happens in their lives and the lives of people around them. I love the story of Mr. Suggs being at the basketball game of his granddaughter, her able to look up in the stands and see um, her grandfather. We know that when children are in a protective environment, feel supported, what it allows for them. So these impacts go far beyond what we're hearing, and they are great in terms of what Mr. Suggs has been able to do for himself, but also what he's been able in the role and the position that he's been able to play in his family. So again, if you think that this is a moral failing of the individual, and if you are unwilling to accept that this is the systems we design and we get the outcomes that we've designed for, then you're going to have a problem with it. But if you can understand that it is not that, and that this is system design at a macro level, then you will understand the power of these small, by comparison, level of support that are given to multinational corporations from our government. Then you could see the benefit of it.
Thank you so much. And then we do want to leave time for a Q&A at the end, but I had one more question for Mr. Suggs. If you had to, in 2 to 3 sentences, say, or if you could speak to someone directly who's skeptical about guaranteed income and giving cash with no strings, what would you wish for them to understand about your experience in CashRX? Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Suggs.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I would tell them, first of all, I would say, well, look at me. Um, I'm in a place in my life, and I'm 67 years old, but the self-esteem that I have and the energy that I have because of how I feel about me and being able to live comfortable life at my age and to participate in life and to understand how important that the funds were and are uh, to make that happen. And um, and able to I'm even able to out of that to give somebody else. I make it a point to give to somebody else every opportunity I have. And I say, wow, that's why I'm so blessed because now I know how to bless others. I'm able to bless others. And it's coming back around. And I can tell you from being on that end of the spectrum where and my pet peeve is young people, especially young men. Uh, a lot of young men, if they had an opportunity to be able to participate in a program like this, their whole mindset about criminal activity and you know uh, being able to succeed in life, it would change. I'm sure it would because most of them they're out there, and I'm speaking from experience when I was younger. I would at one point I would do anything to get money, just to get money to get something to eat. I would break the law of the heartbeat without thinking. And a scenario that one of my mentors gave me, he said, "Man, when uh, you out there breaking the law," and this was when I was in law. He said, "You breaking the law, y'all young men breaking the law, and y'all don't even think about the cost of what you're doing. You know, it's a price you're gonna pay if you get caught. Did you ever think about that? But my mind was so caught up on just getting money, having money to keep up with the Joneses, to feed my kids, my family. I didn't think about the other side of the coin, because every coin has two sides. And uh and being able to have extra funding and have money in my pocket now, that scenario, I'm not even faced with that. I'm never faced with that again. And I'm so encouraged that I keep myself now in a place where I never have to go back to that ever. You know, and I believe a program like this is about the best thing that we could do as a community right now. It's needed. A lot of the crime and the activity that's going on is about have not people having not trying to get it.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Slick.
So,
I don't want to cut you off, but yeah, I mean, that makes me really like when I think about CashRX and its replicability, I just think about like what would DC look like if every single person's basic needs were met. Um, and then your testimony is exactly that. Like, so thank you. So I do want to leave space for Q&A. So I'm gonna pick some questions from the chat, and Brittany, Mr. Suggs, and Dr. Marla, feel free to answer. But the first question I think maybe is for Brittany. So how many participants are in CashRX? What are the plans to scale the program to include more folks?
Yes, an excellent question that we get all the time. There are currently 14 participants spread out over 3 cohorts. So as Daisy mentioned in the beginning, we launched in the fall winter of 2023. So the first cohort is about to wrap up this fall and winter. And we have cohorts 2 and 3. Cohort 2 started about a year after cohort 1, and cohort 3 started this past spring. So each of the cohorts will receive 2 years of payments. And as far as what's next, again, we envisioned this as a small demonstration project. So we wanted to keep it small scale so that we could really dive in to the case studies and stories of each participant intentionally. But with everything, there's funding. If someone out there, foundation, individual, who felt that they wanted to invest in this work and, we received more funding. Again, our ultimate vision is to have CashRX for every medical patient at Bread. So we will continue to work towards that goal. But yes, for this pilot phase, we are capping the participants at 14.
Thank you. And then someone asked, how will participants sustain these results after the program ends? And actually, I'd be interested in hearing the perspective of all the panelists, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'll go first on the issue of sustainability. I think I'm always, so I'm a former nonprofit leader myself, CEO. And so, I mean, the only way sustainability happens is the funding continues to happen. I mean, let's just be honest about that. And so, will people potentially have a different outlook on life, understand that, where their worth is, as Mr. Suggs so eloquently spoke about. But I mean, let's be honest, the tangible dollars are needed to support this, to continue to allow people to have this level of support and dignity. And I don't want to gloss over that and give you some really great answer that it sounds like you can do it sans money. No, you need the funding to do it. And I think that's the reality of the situation. And so, that's what we're thinking about as the Health Equity Fund was and is a time-bound fund. Like, how do we reestablish support for these type of programs? And that's the conversation we're having internally, because this is powerful. This is the work we want to support. We know it works, and we need to bring along fellow travelers with us to support us, to support BREAD and programs like this in the work.
And I believe that to this program it must be duplicated to the point where it's endless for people that are in a position and that need, or people that come to BREAD or other places, and they have the opportunity to participate in these programs. And so they will be able to, when their time is up, they'll be at a place where they know, okay, this is where I have to set my focus, or my bar is up here now financially, and I must try to keep my life up at least around that, and so I have to try to keep a job, or I have to make sure that I'm handling my business, my bills to a certain level, because I know I need this. I learned from having CashRX that if I continually pay my bills, then I'm able to have freedom of mind, uh, have less anxiety, less pressure. So I need to keep a job. I need to keep looking for a job. I need to spend time with my grandkids. I need to uh, try to keep transportation. If it's just a used car to get you from A to B, if you need it and when you need it, uh, try to be at places that will help promote programs like this when needed. I mean, it's so much. Uh, I believe I could go on and on. Uh, Not just because I want to be an advocate to help, but because it's helped me in so many ways. So, uh, yeah, I mean, I look at the future as unlimited with programs like CashRX, because there's so many people out there. There's so many rich people out there that want to give, but it's not presented to them the right way.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs. Brittany, did you?
Yes, thank you. I'll jump in real quick. Um, a, a frequent conversation that we have in the guaranteed income space is, how do we move from pilots to policy? And I think it's such an important question, because we've seen like so many of these programs, um, start and release their findings. The findings all generally say the same thing, that this works. But then the program ends, and what comes next. So what are the things we can do to move the pilots to like policy codified into law and legislation, whether it's local government or the federal government? I think that that is something that speaks to the potential sustainability of this work. Because we've seen with the stimulus checks, for example, that was one way that the government got payments out very, very quickly and effectively. Um, And also speaking to on CashRX specifically, our participants, once their 2 years of payments are up, they will still have access to the whole host of holistic care that Bread offers. And so they will be supported and they will continue to be in the CashRX family and have opportunities to share their stories and testimonies like Mr. Suggs has done today, and to advocate, um, you know, larger scale on for these policies.
Daisy, can I just add to building on what Brittany said? One of the pillars of we have 3 strategies at the Health Equity Fund, and one is policy advocacy systems change. And we really made that our second grant round because we knew that we were going to see promising results, promising practices, and we wanted to have a mechanism in place to move from these pilots to these policy prescriptions and solutions. So we continue to invest heavily in that work. We gave multi-year grants to those who are involved in that work because we think that the way to do this at a systemic level is to move it to policy, be it local or federal or a combination thereof both. And someone asked me, is it true that the minimum wage has not been raised since 2009? The federal minimum wage has not. And so much of the push on this has been left at local levels to try and raise the minimum wage. And in many places, it has not been raised. And we see the results of that because a minimum wage is not a living wage, and we really need people to be at a living wage.
Thank you, all 3 of you. There is one last question that I wanted to make sure that was addressed. What would you say has been the most surprising thing you've learned through the first 2 years? Brittany and I went a little bit into this at the beginning, but another thing that I did want to make sure that we highlighted in this conversation was the way in which the CashRX participants have leaned into being outspoken about their experiences. We have Mr. Suggs here who he spoke at a gala, the Bread for the City gala last year, I believe, and has been so open and gracious with his time to continue to speak about his experience. And he's not the only one. The CashRX participants as a whole are so, I have seen them become so passionate about being part of the advocacy work for guaranteed income in DC. So that has been something really special for me to witness. Yeah, that's all I want to say. We are officially over time, but I did want to offer this space to the panelists if they wanted to say something else about that question. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you. Oh,
Well,
yes.
I was just gonna say real quick. It's like you know, it's a part of finding my purpose. I believe everybody's put in this realm, allowed to come to this realm. Number one, as a gift. We're born and everything about us is known. I believe, even in our mother's womb, and we're put here with a purpose. And uh, the sooner we find it in our lives, the better it is, so that we can live in it and operate in it, because our purpose is here to help others in some kind of way, no matter where you came, your social economic background. But I've seen and I learned that a lot of, especially young men, they never learn their purpose coming here. Their life ends before they even know who they are and why they're here in this. And you know, so this program has allowed me to find my purpose. It's like I'm saying, here I am. Send me. I'll go talk to the president. Just open the door. I'll go in there. and share my story and 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 share with enthusiasm and optimism, uh, because I mean, it speaks for itself to the point where even the president of the United States, at the hardest and one of the roughest times in his country, he gave stimulus checks to everybody. Everybody could get a stimulus check. So they know the value and the power of this program. They already know on a wide scale what it would do. So and it's not insurmountable or out of reach, because look at all the money around the world that this country spends. And I'll leave that alone because I'm real passionate about that part too. So
Yes. I'm excited for your podcast to come out so I can hear all your thoughts. But thank you, Mr. Vernon, for closing us out on that note. I want to thank you, Brittany, also, and Dr. Marla for being part of the panel. And thank you, everyone, for being present and your questions. We have a page on the Bread for the City's website with more information about CashRX. You can sign up for updates. But again, thank you all so much for being here and being part of this conversation. I hope everyone has a good, lovely rest of their day.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye-bye.